Hey, great to have you back here. And if this is your first time, you are in the right place. Welcome to SOC Chronicles. The story you are about to enjoy is not popular. Grab a seat, a drink, and a popcorn if you can. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share. There is a particular kind of intelligence that Harlem manufactures, sharp, adaptive, forged not in quiet libraries but in the noise of streets where everything asks something of you. It is the intelligence of the chess players in Marcus Garvey Park who can run 4 games simultaneously without looking at the boards. It is the intelligence of the women who raised whole families on budgets that should not have worked and somehow did. It is the intelligence of men like Raymond Ellison Banks, who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment on Lenox Avenue with a mother who cleaned office buildings on weeknights, a father who drove a city bus on weekends, and a mind that refused to accept the ceilings the world kept trying to install above his head. He went to City College on a scholarship. He got his MBA from Columbia on a fellowship. He built Apex Capital Group from a desk in the corner of a shared WeWork on 38th Street into one of the most respected private investment firms in the country, managing nearly $12 billion in assets and appearing with tiresome regularity on the covers of Forbes, Fortune, and Black Enterprise, always in the same expression, which people who didn't know him read as arrogance and people who did know him recognized as focus. He had done all of this not by being lucky, though luck had visited him at intervals, but by being, in the estimation of everyone who had ever sat across from a table from him, almost frighteningly smart. He had one daughter. Her name was Zara, and she was smarter than he was. Grab a seat and a drink. Something fantastic is to be shared in this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. He knew it. He had known it since she was 7 years old and sat across from him in the kitchen table in their townhouse on Strivers Row and dismantled his argument about compounding interest with a logic so clean and precise that he had stared at her for a full 30 seconds before speaking. "Where did you learn that?" he had asked. She had shrugged. "I didn't learn it, I just thought about it." He had gone to his office that night and written in the private journal he kept for thoughts too large for conversation, "She is going to do things I cannot imagine. My job is to keep her alive long enough to do them." He was not wrong about either part. The October morning arrived in New York City the way October mornings do when they are trying very hard to be beautiful before winter makes them irrelevant. Clear sky, air like cold water, the light lying gold and flat across the rooftops of Harlem, while the streets below filled with their usual magnificent noise. Zara Ellison Banks woke at 6:15 without an alarm, which she had not used since she was 12. She lay for a moment in the high-ceilinged bedroom of the family's brownstone on Strivers Row, the same street where W.E.B. Du Bois had once lived, a fact her father mentioned to every visitor, and which Zara had long ago accepted as simply part of the address, and stared at the physics equations she had taped to the ceiling directly above her bed. They were not decoration, they were problems she was working through. Her mother, Vivian, a forensic accountant who operated her own firm from an office in Midtown, had once suggested that normal teenagers decorated their ceilings with concert posters and celebrity photos. "I'm not normal," Zara had said, without defensiveness or pride, just acknowledgement of a fact. "No," Vivian had agreed, with the tired and bottomless love of a woman raising someone far beyond her own considerable intelligence. "You are absolutely not." Zara was 15. She was enrolled at the Dalton School on physics class and the only student of any background who had ever caused their teacher, a meticulous man named Mr. Hammond, to visibly recalibrate mid-lecture when a student's question invalidated 20 minutes of his prepared notes. She took the subway to school every morning over her father's persistent objections, had won the citywide STEM Olympiad 2 years running, and spent her free afternoons at a makerspace in Crown Heights, where she was building a prototype solar-powered water filtration system for a science competition in the spring. She was also, on the morning of October 14th, running 15 minutes late because she had stayed up until 2 a.m. recalibrating the voltage meter on her filtration prototype and had forgotten, in the familiar haze of a project that had consumed her brain entirely, to pack the replacement components she needed for school. "You have to eat on the subway. You will sit at this table and eat a real breakfast." Zara sat. She ate. It took 11 minutes. Vivian Banks watched her daughter shovel scrambled eggs with the mechanical efficiency of someone whose mind was already somewhere else entirely, and felt the particular complicated emotion of raising a child who was perpetually 3 steps ahead of you, equal parts awe, love, and the faint ongoing anxiety that the world had not yet caught up to who your child was.
"Your father wants Marcus to drive you today," Vivian said. "I don't need Marcus. He's picking up components for your project after school. He said he'd take you to the electronics place in Harlem first." Zara paused mid-bite. Her filtration prototype needed a precision voltage meter, 3 lithium batteries of a specific grade, and 14 meters of copper wire, items that were available at Brooks Electronics on Malcolm X Boulevard, a narrow shop operated by a meticulous man named Calvin Brooks, who stocked parts that you simply could not find at Best Buy, and whose encyclopedic knowledge of circuitry had saved Zara's project on no fewer than 4 occasions. "Fine," she said, "but I'm going in alone. Marcus waits outside." "That is a negotiation you can have with your father." She did not have it with her father because Raymond had already left for his 7 a.m. breakfast meeting at the Four Seasons. She had it instead with Marcus Webb, who had been driving for the Ellison Banks family for 11 years, who had watched Zara grow from a small girl who peppered him with math puzzles in the back seat to a teenager who still peppered him with math puzzles, but now also argued with him about city traffic patterns with the authority of someone who had studied them empirically. Marcus was 53 years old, built like a man who had played college football and then spent 30 years in a profession that did not require it, with a face that was kind by default and watchful by training. He loved Zara with the uncomplicated fierceness of a man who had no children of his own and had poured that specific love into the child of the family who had treated him like one of their own. He did not like the plan. He said so twice, diplomatically. "I'll be 10 minutes, Zara said. "You can see the door from where you park. I'll text you when I'm coming out." "Marcus," she turned and looked at him from the back seat with her father's exact expression, the one people read as arrogance but was actually focus. "I am going into a store I've been going into since I was 10 years old. I'll be 10 minutes. If you don't hear from me in 15, you have my full and enthusiastic permission to come inside and embarrass me in front of Mr. Brooks." Marcus sighed. It was the sigh of a man who had made this same compromise before and knew distantly that one day he would regret it. 15 minutes, he said. "Then I'm coming in." 15 minutes, she agreed. She got out of the car at 3:42 p.m. Malcolm X Boulevard was doing what it always did in the afternoon, moving, loud, alive, full of the particular Harlem energy that felt different from the energy downtown, more layered, more rooted, carrying the weight and the warmth of a neighborhood that had been many things and was currently in the middle of arguing fiercely about what to be next. Zara walked half a block to Brooks Electronics, pushed open the door to the familiar smell of solder and dust and old circuit boards, and spent 11 minutes inside selecting components while Mr. Brooks, a lean 60-year-old man with reading glasses perpetually pushed up on his forehead, talked her through the difference between two voltage meter models with the patience of someone who understood that the quality of the tool mattered to this particular customer. She came out at 3:53 p.m. with a paper bag under her arm, texted "coming out" to Marcus, and turned toward the car. She never made it to the corner. The grey panel van had been parked on the opposite side of Malcolm X Boulevard for 27 minutes. It had no company logo, no visible plates from the angle of the sidewalk, and a side panel window tinted dark enough to see nothing within. Zara had not noticed it. Nobody had, particularly. A van parked in New York City is about as remarkable as a pigeon. The side door opened smoothly. Two men moved from either side of her with the practiced coordination of people who had rehearsed this or done it before, or both. The first man, wiry, angular, a grey hoodie pulled low over his face, caught her left arm at the elbow. The second man, stocky, broad through the shoulders, quiet about everything, appeared at her right side and pressed something cold and hard at her ribs. He spoke very quietly, close to her ear. "Don't scream, don't fight. Get in the van and you won't be hurt." Zara's body did something involuntary, a full system flood of adrenaline that manifested as a kind of electric stillness, every sense suddenly and ruthlessly sharpened. She felt the pressure at her ribs. She calculated the distance to the nearest pedestrian, an older woman with grocery bags, perhaps 30 feet away, facing the other direction. She heard the van's engine running. She noted that Wiry's grip on her arm was controlled, but not painfully tight, the grip of someone who had been instructed not to injure her. "They need you whole," some clear, cold part of her brain said. That is a leverage point. She thought about screaming. She thought about the self-defense class her father had enrolled her in last spring, a 12-week program run by a former Marine named Coach Davis, who had drilled the wrist release technique until it was muscle memory. She ran the geometry, angle of grip, distance to the door, the position of Stocky on her right with the weapon. Too many variables, too fast, too visible an exit. If she fought here and failed, she would be injured and still in the van, and they would be angrier. If she cooperated, she would be uninjured and in a fixed location, which was a problem with a solution. A panicked person reacts, a thinking person adapts. She got in the van. The door closed, the van moved. The paper bag with the voltage meter and the copper wire sat on the sidewalk of Malcolm X Boulevard, where she had dropped it without thinking, and Marcus Webb, who came out of the car 14 seconds after she texted him, found it there. He picked it up. He looked around. He understood, in the way that a man who loves someone understands when something is deeply wrong, what its presence on the sidewalk without her meant. He called Raymond Ellison Banks before he called anyone else.
Ray was in a meeting on the 34th floor of One World Trade Center when his private phone buzzed, the one whose number he gave to 4 people in the world, Vivian, Marcus, Darnell Pope, and his attorney. He looked at the screen. Unknown number. He stood up. "Excuse me," he said in a voice that gave nothing away, and walked out of the conference room into the corridor where the floor-to-ceiling windows framed Lower Manhattan and the harbor beyond it like a painting that had nothing to do with anything happening inside Raymond Ellison Banks at this moment. He answered. The voice was distorted, a vocal modulation app, robotic at the edges, clipping on certain consonants, male. Unhurried in a way that was theatrical, performed, the unhurriedness of someone who was actually running on adrenaline but had decided that calm was power. "Mr. Ellison Banks, your daughter is safe and she'll stay safe. Here are the rules. Rule 1, no police. Rule 2, no media. Rule 3, $6 million in a private cryptocurrency wallet. You will receive the address by email in 10 minutes, 72 hours. Proof of life in 20 minutes. Clock starts now. The line cut. Ray stood very still for approximately 4 seconds. Then he called Darnell Pope. Darnell Pope was 51 years old, former Secret Service, the kind of man who had spent 23 years keeping other people calm in moments when calm was not the natural human response, and had consequently become, by a deep professional osmosis, the calmest man Ray had ever met. He had been Ray's head of security for 6 years. He had 3 rules of his own: no assumptions, no panic, no wasted motion. "I heard from Marcus," Darnell said, answering on the first ring. "I'm already moving. They want $6 million in crypto, 72 hours. Understood. You need to go back in that room and finish that meeting. Ray? Ray," his voice was level. "If you leave that meeting abruptly, it becomes news. If it becomes news, it becomes a variable we can't control. Finish the meeting. 60 minutes. Then we meet at the house." Ray was quiet.
"She's smart," Darnell said. "Smarter than whoever has her. That's real. Hold on to that." Ray went back into the conference room. He sat for 60 minutes. He did not remember a single word of what was discussed. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Like, subscribe, and share. The proof of life video arrived 23 minutes after the call. Zara sat in a concrete room, her back straight, her hands in her lap. She wore the same cream crewneck and dark jeans she'd left home in. She was holding a printed copy of that morning's New York Times, the edition, the date visible in the header, and she was looking directly into the camera with an expression that Ray, watching the video for the first time in his home office with Darnell and Vivian on either side of him, recognized with a physical impact like a hand around his heart. She was not just frightened, she was thinking. She spoke. "Daddy, I'm okay. I'm not hurt. Please do what they ask." A pause. Her eyes moved, just slightly, just a fraction, down and to the left, the way they moved when she was solving something. Then back to the camera. "I love you and Mum. I'm okay." The video ended. Vivian made a sound that she immediately controlled. Ray watched the video 3 more times, each time with the suspended, precise attention of a man reading a contract for clauses that are designed not to be found. The 4th time, he saw it. She had scratched something into the corner of the New York Times front page, so lightly that you would miss it entirely if you weren't looking for it. 3 letters, pressed with a thumbnail into the newsprint. RH4. Ray turned to Darnell. He said nothing. He pointed. Darnell leaned in, his face close to the screen, studied the letters for a long time. "She's talking to us," Vivian said, quietly, from behind them. "She's been talking to us since the video started," Ray said. "We need to figure out what she's saying." He pulled up a blank document on his computer and typed the 3 characters. RH4. He stared at them. RH4. He thought about his daughter. He thought about the way she communicated, not in words when symbols would do, not in symbols when geometry would do. He thought about the games they had played when she was small, before all of this, the code games, the signal games. They had a word for it. He had called it banker's brain, the ability to strip away noise and leave only signal. She had been inside a concrete room holding a newspaper with maybe 60 seconds to communicate. She would have used that 60 seconds as efficiently as possible. She would have given him the minimum necessary and trusted him to do the rest. RH4. He thought. The room was quiet. Then he said, "Washington Heights, near the river, north of 155th. Darnell looked at him.
R is for the rumble, Ray said, thinking it through as he spoke. She hears the subway, an express line. She knows the difference. AC corridor or the one. H is for heights. She smells something. She's in an industrial block, western edge, near the waterfront. He paused. 4 is the number of times the freight horn blew before the video cut. Hudson River freight route runs north of 155th. She's telling us exactly where she is. Darnell was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. She's in a 4-block radius, he said into the phone. Washington Heights, West Side, 155th to 163rd, between Riverside and Broadway. I need eyes on every industrial ground floor unit, garages, converted basements. Start now. Quiet. He hung up and looked at Ray. She gave us the location, Darnell said. Now we give her the time to work. How long? Enough that we don't spook them and they move her. Not so long she runs out of options. Darnell did the math behind his eyes. 36 hours. We stall the negotiation, look compliant, and we close the net. If she's going to move on her own, she'll move by then. Ray looked at his wife. Vivian Banks had not cried. She sat with her hands folded on her knees and her face composed into an expression that was not calm, but it's the thing that looks like calm from the outside when there is simply no option that involves falling apart. She got out more information in 1 minute than most people could get out in a week, Vivian said. Ray nodded slowly. She's not done.
The room was 9 feet by 11 feet. Zara knew this because she had counted her steps in 4 directions within the first 10 minutes of being left alone. The ceiling was low and unfinished, bare joists overhead, the underside of a floorboard above. A single bare bulb on a pull chain, which she left on. The walls were concrete block on 2 sides, cheap drywall on the other 2, the kind of conversion job you found in thousands of Harlem and Heights basements, someone who had divided an underground space into rooms with the least possible investment. The floor was poured concrete with a drain near the center. The air smelled of damp, motor oil, and something chemical and faint, the kind of smell that clings to the western edge of Washington Heights, near the old commercial blocks above the 155th Street Viaduct. The subway vibration came every few minutes, reliable as a pulse. She had timed it. Long intervals, consistent pressure, not a local line's light rattle, but the heavy roll of an express. The A train, most likely, or the 1, running 1, maybe 2 blocks away. She was underground. She was in Washington Heights. She was near the Hudson. She had told her father everything she could in the proof of life video. Now she waited to see if the next part, the part that depended on her own capability, would hold together. There were 3 of them. She named them internally within the first few hours, a habit she had developed from years of organizing large amounts of variable information by assigning identifiers. The first man, the voice on the phone, the architect of whatever this was, she called Tenor. He was the most dangerous because he was the most intelligent. He appeared rarely, spoke to the others in short, clipped instructions, and never spoke to Zara directly after the initial abduction. She estimated him to be in his late 30s, calm in a way that was not natural but practiced, the composure of someone who had done time or spent time around people who had, and learned correctly that emotion was a liability in high-stakes situations. He wore a ski mask every time he entered the room. He did not limp, did not favor any side, moved with economic precision. The second man, the one who had grabbed her arm on Malcolm X Boulevard, she called Carter. He was wiry, mid-20s, chronically nervous in the way that expressed itself as excess movement. He paced when he was on the phone, tapped his knee when he sat, talked more than he should have when he thought she was asleep. She could hear him through the drywall partition on the left side of the room. This was extremely useful. The third man, the one who brought her food twice a day and never spoke, she called Brooks. He was stocky, powerful, quiet. He had a slight drag on his left foot when he walked, a healed injury, she guessed, an old fracture or a torn ligament that hadn't set quite right. He was strong and he was careful, but he was slow, and he always delivered her food and left within 60 seconds. He kept his eyes down. She ate everything they gave her, a gas station sandwich and a bottle of water, twice a day. She ate it with the deliberate efficiency of an athlete fueling a performance. She needed her body operational.
On the first night, through the dry wall, she caught pieces of Carter on the phone. "Yeah, I know, just got to hold it 2 more days. No, she's quiet, she's fine, she's just sitting there. Thursday noon, if the money ain't moved by then." Thursday noon, that was her outer limit. 60 hours from now, approximately. She rolled up her sleeves and began inventorying the room with the systematic methodology of a scientist running an experiment. Not frantically, not desperately, but with the cool, sequential attention of someone who understood that observation was the first and most essential step. The door, hollow core wood, padlocked from outside. Cheap hinges, standard removable pin hinges, the $4 per pair variety from any hardware store. The pins were on her side of the door. The frame was standard residential pre-hung framing, the kind that gave relatively easily on the strike plate side if you hit it right, but she didn't need to hit it. She needed a pin punch or something close to one. Against the far wall, a metal folding chair, the kind used at church events and community meetings across every borough in this city. A plastic bucket, a cardboard box sealed with packing tape. She opened the box with her fingernails. Inside, a coil of nylon rope, a roll of duct tape, a package of zip ties, 2 prepaid phones still in plastic packaging, a bottle of water, and, her breath caught with a precision that she consciously controlled, a small screwdriver set in a plastic case, eyeglass repair screwdrivers, the kind that accompanied glasses purchases everywhere and accumulated in junk drawers across America. She took the second smallest flathead, the one that measured, by her estimate, approximately 1.8 millimeters at the tip, and tucked it flat against her skin, inside the waistband of her leggings, pressing it against her left hip. She resealed the box as closely as she could manage. Then she sat back down in the center of the room, in the position they had last seen her in, and began to build her plan.
Day 2. The architecture of escape. Sleep came in short intervals, light and pragmatic, the sleep of someone who understood that cognitive function degraded without it, and who therefore treated rest as a resource to be managed rather than a comfort to be sought. She slept between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., woke and lay still in the dark, organized her plan into sequences, slept again from 4 to 6. By the morning of day 2, she had identified 7 things she knew for certain and 3 variables she needed to resolve. The 7 certainties. Her father had the coordinates. She was confident enough in her intelligence and in the private language they had built together over 15 years to bank her life on that, which was precisely what she was doing. Darnell Pope was almost certainly already moving on those coordinates, which meant there was a closing net somewhere in a 4-block radius of where she sat. The door hinges were removable pin. Brooks was slow and alone in the early afternoon when Carter left. Tenor came and went at unpredictable intervals, but had not been present, by her count, for more than 20 minutes of any given hour. The vent near the ceiling was too small for her body, but large enough to pass sound both ways. There were no cameras in her room. She had checked every corner and junction. The 3 variables.
What was the layout beyond the door? How much time elapsed between Carter's departure and Brooks's food delivery? And could she generate a controlled, contained distraction that would bring Brooks into the room and leave him occupied long enough to create a 30-second window? She spent the morning resolving the layout question. She pressed her ear to the drywall at 3 different points, tapping lightly with her knuckle, testing for stud placement, hollow sections, the telltale echo pattern of a wall that was doing nothing structural. She listened to every footstep. She mapped the sounds with the spatial precision of someone who had spent years working with physical geometry. What she built over 6 hours of listening and tapping and cataloging was this. Beyond the door was a corridor approximately 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. To the left of the corridor's end, a larger room. She could hear this from the change in acoustic register when Carter talked on the phone, the way his voice opened up slightly, the way you hear a room expand around a sound source. To the right, a staircase going up, its location betrayed by the creak sequence she had memorized. 4 steps, 5 steps, a landing, then a heavier exterior door at the top. The exterior door had a knob that stuck slightly before releasing. She could hear it clearly every time Carter left and returned. The staircase, the exit, 14 steps away from her door, give or take. For the distraction, she disassembled the folding chair. A metal folding chair, when approached with systematic attention rather than brute force, yields its components through a logical sequence. The legs telescoped free of their lock pins. The cross brace underneath the seat could be leveraged loose from its rivets with the flathead screwdriver worked into the joint. The seat panel, thin steel, lightly padded, lifted free when the structural integrity was gone. She had 2 leg sections, a cross brace, and a seat panel. She thought for a long time about timing mechanisms. She had duct tape, she had a coil of rope. She had the vent and the ceiling and the drain in the floor. She had the geometric logic of tension, release, and weight. She built this. The 2 leg sections were braced against the interior face of the vent cover at an angle, creating a spring tension held in place by a length of rope tied to the door handle. The seat panel was balanced on top of the braced legs. The cross brace sat across the top of everything, angled so that when the tension released, it would strike the metal legs on its way down and generate secondary impact sounds, a crash, a clatter, a sustained metallic racket that would sound from the other side of the door like someone had thrown something large and hard against the wall. The rope from the door handle to the brace tension meant that if she opened the door herself, the mechanism would fire. If she wanted to trigger it at a specific time without opening the door, she needed a delay release. She used duct tape. A 2-inch strip of duct tape folded twice for thickness and pressed firmly across the tension point of the rope would hold under light pressure, but would creep and release over time as the adhesive contact degraded against the rope surface. She had tested this, or as close to testing as she could with her available materials, applying and releasing tape strips against the metal brace and estimating release time from the degradation rate. Her estimate, 11 to 15 minutes under standard room temperature conditions. She needed it to fire approximately 45 minutes after Brooks delivered her midday food and left. She ran the numbers 3 times. She set the mechanism. Then she sat down, ate her sandwich, drank her water, and waited. On the afternoon of day 2, with approximately 20 hours left on the clock, something happened that Zara had not planned for and that changed the temperature of everything. Tenor came in. He stood in the doorway, ski mask on, hands in the pockets of his jacket, and looked at her for a moment without speaking. Then he said, in the distorted voice she recognized from the phone call her father must have received, "Your father is taking too long." Zara said nothing. She kept her hands in her lap, her posture neutral, her eyes on his. "Tell me something," he said. "How does a man with $4 billion need 2 days to move 6 million?" "He's being careful," Zara said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. "He's protecting himself and the money. That's how he got to 4 billion. Tenor was quiet for a moment. She could not read his face. That was the function of the ski mask, of course, but she had learned in 16 hours that you could read a great deal from a person's shoulders and hands and the quality of their stillness. And what she read from Tenor now was not anger, but calculation. He was thinking about something. "Smart kid," he said finally. "I know," she said. He almost laughed. She saw it in the brief lift of his shoulders, the tiny shift of his posture. Then it closed. "Tell your father to stop stalling. Tell him Thursday noon is real." He shut the door. The padlock clicked. Zara sat with her hands in her lap and counted her heartbeat down from 60 until they were steady again. She had 12 hours until Thursday noon. She had 15 minutes after Brooks's next food delivery. She was going to be on the other side of that door before Tenor could make good on anything.
Day 3. The window. She did not sleep on Wednesday night. Not because she was frightened, though she was frightened. She had been frightened from the moment the van door closed, and she had built her entire strategy on top of that fear, the way you build a structure on bedrock. It was there, it was real, it was not going anywhere, and it was not in charge. But because she needed to be completely precise about timing, and she could not afford the risk of oversleeping. She lay on the cold floor and she thought. She thought about her father sitting at his desk watching that video. She thought about Darnell, who she had known since she was 9 years old and who she trusted in a specific, professional way, the way you trust someone who is extremely good at exactly the thing they are supposed to be extremely good at. She thought about Marcus, who was almost certainly not sleeping either, who was almost certainly sitting in the Escalade somewhere near Washington Heights, blaming himself for 11 minutes of trusting her. She thought about her mother. Vivian Banks was not a demonstrative woman. She expressed love through presence, through meals that appeared when you forgot to eat, through a kind of watchful, practical attention that had nothing sentimental about it and everything essential. She had never told Zara to be careful. She had told Zara to be capable. "There is a difference," she had said once, when Zara was 12 and wanted to quit the self-defense class because it was hard and she was already tired. Careful means you depend on the world behaving. Capable means you handle it when it doesn't. Zara had not quit the class. She thought about that at 3 a.m. on the concrete floor of a basement in Washington Heights and felt something that was not quite comfort but was in the same neighborhood, the solid, load-bearing knowledge of where she had come from and what it had made her. She got up at 5 a.m. and began her final preparations. Carter had left at 10:15. She had heard the full departure sequence, the heavy footsteps, the corridor, the staircase creak, the 4-step pattern, the sticky knob exterior door opening and closing. She had given it 5 additional minutes to be certain he was not coming back for something forgotten. 10:20 a.m., mechanism armed. The duct tape strip held the tension. She estimated a release at approximately 11 to 15 minutes from arming, which put the crash between 10:31 and 10:35. She positioned herself. She stood flat against the wall in the gap between the door's swing arc and the hinge side, the small triangular zone of dead space that the door itself created when it opened inward. She was 4 feet 9 in her socks. The gap was tight.
She pressed herself completely flat, her shoulder blades against the concrete block, the screwdriver in her right hand not as a weapon, but as a lever. She would jam it into the bottom corner of the doorframe after Brooks entered at the 4-inch mark to create a momentary resistance against reclosure that would buy her the 2-second lead she needed. She did not breathe in any noticeable way. Brooks always delivered food at approximately 11 a.m. She needed the crash to happen before he arrived so that he would enter the room already off balance, expecting to find a problem rather than a prisoner. His attention would be on the scattered debris on the floor, not on the space behind the door. At 10:44 a.m., the duct tape strip released. The mechanism fired. The sound was extraordinary, a sharp metal bang, immediately followed by the cascading clatter of the crossbrace striking the leg sections on its way down, everything clanging and bouncing off the concrete floor and into the drain, with a racket that probably sounded from the other side of the drywall partition, like someone had knocked over an industrial shelf unit. The echo in the concrete room elongated it, made it bigger. Silence. Then, from beyond the door, footsteps. Heavy, quick, the slightly uneven pattern of Brooks's left foot drag. She heard the padlock, the click, the chain, the scrape of the hasp. The door opened inward. Brooks stepped through. He was already looking at the scattered metal debris on the floor, at the disassembled chair parts and the duct tape, and the coil of rope in a confused heap near the drain. His body was oriented to the problem he had been given. His brain was 30 seconds behind the situation. Zara jammed the screwdriver into the base of the doorframe. She went around the door in one motion, not past Brooks, but behind him, through the gap on the hinge side. 2 steps, no contact, no sound that mattered. She was in the corridor. She ran. The corridor was exactly as she had mapped it, 8 feet, the larger room to her left, the staircase to her right. She hit the stairs without breaking stride. 4 steps, 5, the landing, the exterior door at the top, a heavy commercial fire door with a push bar, the kind installed on every converted commercial building in the borough. She hit the push bar with both hands and her full weight. Cold October air, sunlight, the smell of the Hudson River, sharp and real and clean after 3 days of motor oil and concrete. She came out on a narrow service street, 158th and Riverside Drive, the Hudson 3 blocks to the west, the George Washington Bridge visible upriver through the yellow-leafed trees. The city roared around her, magnificent and indifferent, doing what cities do in the middle of a Thursday morning. A woman walking a golden retriever on the sidewalk stopped and stared at her. Zara ran straight to her. She was breathing hard, not from fear now, but from motion, from the pure animal release of moving after 3 days of strategic stillness. She stopped 2 feet from the woman, whose name Zara would later learn was Mrs. Claudette Hines, retired public school teacher, grandmother of 4, resident of Washington Heights for 31 years. Looked at her for exactly 1 second. Then she handed her her phone.
Ray Ellison Banks was in the back of his car on Riverside Drive, approximately 6 blocks south of where his daughter was standing, when his personal phone rang. An unknown number. He answered before it completed its first ring. "Daddy." Raymond Ellison Banks had sat across negotiating tables from hostile counterparties for 20 years. He had closed deals at 3 a.m. in conference rooms that smelled of burned coffee and desperation. He had navigated the 2008 financial crisis, a hostile acquisition attempt in 2017, and a federal investigation in 2020 that resolved in his favor but had taken 3 years and his last 3 inches of hair to get through. He had not, in any of those moments, sat down on the floor. He sat down on the floor of the back seat of his Escalade on Riverside Drive and put one hand over his mouth and closed his eyes.
"Baby," he managed. "Baby, are you hurt?" "I'm not hurt." Her voice was steady, steady in a way that made something inside him simultaneously break and hold. "I'm on 158th and Riverside. I got out, Daddy. I built a distraction device out of a folding chair and some duct tape, and I got out." He laughed. It was a broken sound, the laugh of a man who had been operating on pure, controlled terror for 71 hours and had just been handed a reason to breathe. "Don't move," he said. Marcus, go. 158th and Riverside, now." "I know," Marcus said, who had heard every word. He was already accelerating. "I need you to call Darnell," Zara said. "The building is on the service road behind 158th. I came out of a fire door on the east face. There's still 2 of them inside, maybe 3. They have a grey panel van." Ray was already dialing Darnell on the second line. "She's out," he said when Darnell picked up. 158th and Riverside, building on the service road, east face fire door, 3 subjects, grey van. Move." "Already moving," Darnell said. 3 units are on that block. ETA 90 seconds. "The woman who lent you your phone," Ray said to Zara. "Tell her she is going to be in my debt forever. Tell her whatever she wants, she has." Zara turned to Mrs. Hines, who was standing exactly where she had been, the golden retriever sitting calmly at her feet, her coffee cup still in her hand, watching a 15-year-old girl conduct 3 simultaneous phone conversations with the unruffled aplomb of someone running a major operation. "My father says thank you," Zara said. Mrs. Hines nodded once, with the satisfied gravity of someone who had done the right thing and needed no further acknowledgement of it. "Tell your father," she said, "that we take care of ours around here." The Escalade was there in 4 minutes. Marcus got out before the car had fully stopped. He crossed the sidewalk in 6 strides and picked Zara up off the ground in the kind of embrace that doesn't need words and doesn't ask permission. The embrace of a man who had spent 71 hours doing nothing but driving slowly around a 4-block radius, waiting for a moment he wasn't sure was coming. "I'm okay," Zara said against his shoulder. "Marcus, I'm okay." "I know," he said. "I know you are." She let him hold on for a moment. She could feel him shaking slightly, in the way that large, controlled people shake when the control finally releases. She let that be what it was. Then she pulled back and looked at him. "You found the bag," she said. He blinked. "The bag from the electronics store? Yeah, it was on the ground. You dropped it." "I dropped it on purpose. I needed you to know exactly where I was taken from, so the surveillance footage would cover the right block. Did Darnell pull the cameras?" Marcus stared. "Did he?" Zara pressed. Yes, he pulled—" "Zara, you have been kidnapped for 3 days." "I know. I was there." She managed something close to a smile. "I need to sit down now, actually. My legs are— Yeah, I need to sit down." He sat her in the back of the Escalade. He gave her the bottle of water from the center console. He sat beside her and did not let go of her hand and did not say anything else, because there was nothing else to say. 3 blocks north, at 10:54 a.m., Darnell Pope's team, working in coordination with NYPD's Major Crimes Unit, which had been quietly briefed at the 48-hour mark when it became clear the situation required additional resources, entered the building on the service road. They found Carter attempting to exit through a second-floor window. He did not make it. They found Brooks still in the basement room, standing in the middle of the scattered folding chair components and the coil of rope, looking at all of it with an expression that the detective who arrested him would describe in his report as seeming genuinely confused about what had happened to his materials. They found Tenor in a parked car half a block away, monitoring a burner phone, waiting for confirmation that the money was moving. He was the last one cuffed and the most composed about it, which the detective who handled his arrest noted in the report as well. All 3 were charged with kidnapping in 1st degree.
Federal charges filed the following morning, given the ransom demand. The grey panel van was impounded. The crypto wallet address, to which no funds had ever been transferred, was flagged and tracked. It was over by noon.
Ray Ellison Banks met his daughter on the corner of 158th and Riverside Drive at 11:09 a.m. on Thursday, October 17th, having driven there himself, without Marcus, without Darnell, alone, which was something Ray Ellison Banks almost never was in any public space, because there are some moments that belong only to the people inside them. He got out of the car and she walked to him, and he held her, and he didn't say a word for a long time, because there were no words in him, only the physical fact of her being there, whole and upright and alive, smelling like concrete and motor oil and the borrowed fabric softener of someone else's sweatshirt that Mrs. Hines had quietly draped over her shoulders. When he could speak, he said, "RH4. She pulled back and looked at him. "You got it. Your mother got it. I was 2 minutes behind her." Zara laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of her, the laugh she had been holding for 3 days. "Tell her I said she's brilliant." "Tell her yourself." He pulled out his phone and called Vivian, who answered on the first half ring and said nothing at all for the first 10 seconds, just breathed, with her daughter on the line, the two of them connected across the city by nothing but air and signal and the stubborn, insisting fact of love. The press conference. 2 days later, on a Saturday morning that had the same gold and clear quality as the Tuesday before it, Raymond Ellison Banks stood on the steps of the Apex Capital offices on 125th Street with his daughter beside him and gave a brief statement to the press. He was not a man who performed emotion in public. He had spent a career cultivating the image of measured certainty. It was, in many ways, the I am standing here because of what she did, not the other way around. I am also standing here to say something to the girls in this city, in this neighborhood, and in every neighborhood who are watching this right now. Your mind is your first, best, and most powerful asset. The world will sometimes tell you otherwise. The world will sometimes try to take things from you. What the world cannot take, if you build it and protect it and use it without apology, is what is already inside your head. My daughter proved that this week. She has been proving it her entire life. She is also grounded for 6 months for dismissing her driver without authorization. The crowd on 125th Street laughed. Someone cheered. Zara stood beside her father with her arms crossed and her expression in the neighborhood of exasperation, but her eyes were bright, and anyone watching closely, the way her father watched her, the way her mother watched her, the way Marcus and Darnell and Mrs. Hines, who had been quietly invited and stood near the back with her golden retriever and a thermos of coffee, watched her, that underneath everything, underneath the composure and the eye roll and the absolute refusal to be made into a symbol of anything she hadn't chosen, Zara Ellison Banks was okay. Better than okay. She was exactly who she had been on Tuesday morning. She was exactly who she was going to be.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to SOC Chronicles. That evening, Zara sat at the desk in her bedroom on Stryver's Row, the physics equations still taped to the ceiling, unchanged, the city visible through the window in its evening mode, lit and busy and enormous, and she pulled out a fresh composition notebook. She had not cried. Not during the 72 hours, not during the reunion, not during the press conference or the medical evaluation, or the long, quiet dinner afterward where her parents sat on either side of her at the kitchen table, and nobody said very much, but nobody left either. She did not cry now. She opened the notebook and wrote at the top of the first page in the small, precise hand she used for equations and experimental notes. October 17. Observations from a constrained environment, systematic approaches to intelligence gathering, spatial mapping, mechanical improvisation, and timed distraction mechanisms under conditions of limited material availability. She thought for a moment. Then she wrote below it, also, what it feels like to be afraid and useful at the same time, what it feels like to trust the people who are looking for you and to trust yourself to give them enough to work with, what it feels like to move through a door you built the key to. I want to remember all of it, not because it was good, but because it was real, and because I learned things I couldn't have learned any other way, and because the woman who walked into that building on 158th Street and the woman who walked out of it 3 days later are the same person. I want to know her. She closed the notebook. Outside the window, Harlem settled into its evening, the sound of it drifting up, familiar and constant, the specific noise of a neighborhood that had survived everything the city had ever tried to do to it and was still, stubbornly and magnificently, here. Zara reached up and pulled down the physics equations from the ceiling. She had solved them. Time for new ones.